You think you failed. You didn't. What actually happened is your mind made a decision about what that moment meant, and it made the wrong one. Failure isn't an event, it's a label. It's something you slapped onto a moment before you understood it, and then you never went back to check if the label was even true. And today, I'm gonna take that label off, piece by piece, until you see what was actually sitting underneath it the whole time. Because I promise you, it's not what you think. Think about the last time something didn't work out. Maybe it was a business, a relationship, a goal you told everyone about, and then quietly stopped mentioning because you got tired of the questions. You remember the exact moment it fell apart, the message you got, the look on someone's face, the number in your bank account. And ever since that moment, some part of your brain has treated it like evidence, like proof. Proof that you're not capable, proof that you're not lucky, proof that you're not one of those people who make it. Here's the question nobody ever asks you. Who told you that's what it meant? Because nobody did. You decided that, alone, in a moment of pain with no evidence, with no trial, with no jury. You convicted yourself, and you've been serving the sentence ever since. Here's what's actually happening inside your head, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Your brain doesn't store failure as a fact, it stores it as a rehearsal. Every single time you replay that moment, the business that didn't work, the relationship that ended, the attempt that fell short, you're not remembering it, you are rehearsing it. And your brain cannot tell the difference between something that's true and something you've rehearsed 10,000 times. Repetition becomes belief. That's it. That's the whole mechanism. It's not clever, it's not mystical, it's just biology, and it's running on autopilot inside you right now, whether you've noticed it or not. So think about that for a second. If repetition becomes belief, then every time you sit there thinking, I always mess things up, I'm not built for this, people like me don't win, you are not describing reality, you are manufacturing it. You are the author of that belief, and you've been writing the same sentence every single day without realizing you're the one holding the pen. This is why two people can experience the exact same setback and walk away with completely different lives 5 years later. It was never about the setback, it was about which sentence they chose to rehearse afterward.
There are two types of people after a failure. Not two types of people in general, two types in that specific moment, and you get to choose which one you are every single time. Type 1 treats the failure as a verdict, final, closed case. This happened, therefore this is who I am. They carry it into every future decision like a weight strapped to their back, and they wonder why everything feels heavier than it should. Type 2 treats the exact same failure as a data point. Not good, not bad, just information. A signal that says this particular approach at this particular time with this particular set of resources didn't produce the result I wanted. That's it. No identity attached, no verdict, just information, filed away, ready to improve the next attempt. Same event, two completely different futures, and the only variable, the only one, is which story got rehearsed afterward. Think about Ronnie Coleman, 8 world championships in bodybuilding. The man was going for a squat of 800 pounds, something almost nobody on earth has ever attempted, and on his second rep, he didn't get the full 5 reps he was aiming for. He remembers that moment to this day. He still talks about it with regret. But here's the thing, that moment didn't stop him. It didn't become his identity, it became a data point he carried into the next session, the next year, the next championship. The failure didn't disappear, it got filed correctly. Or think about David Goggins before he was Goggins, before any of the ultramarathons, before Can't Hurt Me, before any of it. He failed his very first attempt at Navy SEAL training. Not once, twice. If failure were a verdict, that's where the story ends. Nobody hears about him again. But he didn't file it as a verdict. He filed it as information about a gap between where he was and where he needed to be. And he went and closed that gap.
That's the entire difference between the version of him that disappears from history and the version of him that ends up in gyms and headphones all over the world. Now here's where I need to push back on almost everything you've probably heard on this topic already, because most of it is either useless or actively harmful. The first bad advice? Just forget about it. Erase it. Act like it never happened. Pretend you never lost. This sounds powerful in a 15-second clip, but try living it for a month. You cannot outwill biology. Suppressing an emotion doesn't delete it, it just delays the bill. And when that bill comes due, it usually shows up somewhere worse, as anxiety you can't explain, as a short temper, as a wall between you and people who love you. Suppression is not strength, it's a loan with brutal interest. The second bad advice, and this one's sneakier. If you tried your best, it doesn't matter if you lost. This sounds comforting, but notice what it actually teaches you. It quietly gives you permission to lower the bar on effort so that losing never has to sting. That's not resilience, that's a coping mechanism disguised as wisdom. Here's the actual skill, and it's neither of those two things. You don't erase the memory. You don't pretend the sting isn't real. You change the memory's job description. Instead of asking, "What does this say about me?" you ask, "What does this tell me about the plan?" That single shift moves the failure out of your identity and into your strategy folder, where it was always supposed to live in the first place. The sting can stay. It just doesn't get to vote on who you are anymore. I know what some of you are thinking right now. Okay, that sounds nice, but you don't know what I went through. You don't know how many times I've tried. You don't know how much it cost me. Money, time, relationships, sleep. And you're right, I don't know your specific number. But here's what I do know. The size of the failure was never the thing determining your future. The story you told about it was. A small setback rehearsed into an identity can do more damage over 10 years than a massive setback that got correctly filed as data on day one. This isn't about pretending the pain wasn't real. Pain is real. Loss is real. Some of you lost money you needed. Some of you lost people you loved. I'm not telling you to smile through that. I'm telling you that grief and rehearsal are two different processes, and most people never separate them. You're allowed to grieve something fully and still refuse to let it write your identity. Those two things are not in conflict. In fact, they only work properly together. So here's exactly what to do, starting tonight, and I want you to actually do this, not just nod along and forget it in 20 minutes. Take the last thing that didn't work out for you, the one that's still sitting there uninvited in the back of your mind. Get a piece of paper or your notes app, doesn't matter. Make 2 lists. List 1, everything about that situation that was genuinely in your control, your preparation, your effort, the decisions you made with the information you had at the time, your follow-through. List 2, everything that was not in your control, other people's choices, timing, market conditions, luck, things nobody could have predicted. Now here's the part that actually changes something. List 2, you're done with it. Not because it doesn't matter, but because rehearsing something you never controlled produces 0 return on the energy you spend on it. Minutes stolen from building something new. So list 2 gets acknowledged once, and then it gets released. List 1 is where you now live. That's your only assignment going forward, improving the things that were actually yours to improve. Not because it guarantees a different outcome next time. It doesn't. But it guarantees you're building instead of rehearsing, and building is the only thing that is ever compounded into anything worth having. This isn't complicated. It's 1 piece of paper and 2 columns, but almost nobody does it because almost nobody wants to admit which column most of their pain actually belongs in. I want you to picture 2 people side by side. Same failed attempt, same amount of money lost, same amount of public embarrassment. The only difference between them is what happens in the weeks after. The first person spends those weeks explaining to family why it didn't work, explaining to friends, defending the decision to try in the first place. Every conversation drains a little more energy, and at the end of it, nothing new has been built, just a lot of tired justification. The second person spends those same weeks with their 2 lists,
quietly working through what was actually theirs to fix. They don't call a meeting, they don't need everyone to understand, they just start again, a little smarter, a little more specific about what needs to change. Stretch that out over a year, and the gap between these two people isn't talent. It was never talent. It's where they chose to spend their energy in the weeks right after the setback. Explaining or building. One of them is still explaining. The other has something to show for it.
So I want you to say this with me, out loud if you can, because saying it matters more than reading it. It's not failure, it's unfinished data. Say it again. Not failure, unfinished data. Every single setback sitting in your memory right now is not a verdict against you. It's an unfinished file, waiting for you to ask it the right question instead of the wrong one. The wrong question is, what does this say about me? The right question is, what does this tell me about the plan? One question keeps you stuck rehearsing a sentence you didn't even choose on purpose. The other one hands you a next step. Not failure, unfinished data. That's the whole reset.
Here's something worth sitting with. Every person you admire, and I mean every single one, no exceptions, has a private list of moments that, from the outside, look like failure. The difference is never that they avoided that list. Nobody avoids that list. The difference is they refuse to let that list be the final chapter. They treated the list as raw material, something to build with, not something to be buried under. And here's the part that should actually give you some relief right now, tonight, listening to this. It means the setback you're carrying isn't disqualifying you from anything. It's not proof you're not one of those people. It's the exact same raw material every single one of those people started with. The only variable left is what you do with it starting today. Not starting next Monday, not starting after you feel more ready. Starting today. With the two lists, with the reframe, with the decision to stop rehearsing and start building.
So here's my question for you, and I actually want an honest answer, not just a nod. What's the one setback you're still rehearsing as identity instead of using as data? You don't need to type out the details in the comments if it's private. Just name it to yourself right now, in your own head. Give it its real name, and then ask it the right question. Not what does this say about me? Ask it, what does this tell me about the plan? Write your two lists tonight, not tomorrow, tonight. Because the moment you stop calling it failure is the exact moment it stops being able to control you.
If this reframed something for you, that's the entire point of this channel. Resetting the stories you've been carrying without realizing you had a choice in the first place. Subscribe if you want more of this, because we're just getting started. And I'll see you in the next one.